All right. Hey guys, this is Stel Yafty, co-founder and CEO of Close.io. Today I have with me Gary Vaynerchuk, the one and only hustling superhero. Uh, and hey Gary, first of all, thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, no worries. I'm super flattered for the interest, though.
Awesome. So, I've watched tons and tons of interviews, your talks, your passion really is super inspiring. And I read all your books and that. But one topic that I always wish there was a little bit more time for you to explore and expand on is the topic of sales and the entrepreneurial hustle.
Yeah,
So today I want to talk about that with you. And I've heard you describe beforehand, describe yourself as a salesperson.
yeah.
I'd love to know when you had that realization for the very first time. When was that moment where you thought, you know what? What I'm doing, what I'm good at, that it's called sales and I like it. When was that time when you actually realized that?
Um, for me, it came in a couple of waves. So I've talked, and it sounds like you know a lot about my stuff, and I think a lot of people that watch this will know my stuff. For the ones that don't, I talk a lot about selling flowers at 4 and lemonade at 6. Really, really hit me in fourth grade, fifth grade. I was selling lemonade, but it seemed like a thing kids did, right?
Right.
I don't I think when I really realized I was a salesman or I like selling was when my baseball card obsession started, you know, around 9, 10, 11 years old. I started really saying, okay, why am I going there was a baseball card club in 6th grade actually when I was a little older. And I just remember my teacher was like paying attention to like me and like knew that I was ripping people off, right? It sounded like it was a bad thing, but I just thought it was good salesmanship, right? Like we all had the same price guide, like I wasn't tricking people. I just convinced them that my product was undervalued and their product was overvalued. So I would say somewhere around 11, okay, I'm a salesman. That got really reaffirmed at 15 when knowing nothing about wine, I was selling a boatload of wine in my dad's store. Um, and there was always excuses, kind of like, oh, well, maybe I'm just cute, like not excuses, like funny little, like it wasn't excuses. That's the wrong word. There was always like curiosity to why was like it just probably around 15, 16, it became like, okay, I'm great at this. You're right. I think of myself as a salesman as much as I think of myself as an entrepreneur. I think I'm an entrepreneurial salesman, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people in tech are entrepreneurial developers, entrepreneurial, you know, I'm an entrepreneurial salesman, um, and uh, and I would say between ages of 9 and 15 is when that got honed in.
So let's talk about the kind of wine store experience in selling wine because I think that's such a fascinating product to sell. Uh,
Hold on 1 second. Hold
oh,
on.
sure, sure.
Thanks. Thank you. No, I'm good. Thank you. Hotel life, fellas. Hotel life. All right, go ahead.
So selling wine, right? You
Yeah,
just said that, you when you started selling wine and selling a shit ton of it without even knowing what you were doing.
yeah.
Tell me about the experience of kind of experiencing your dad and other people kind of in the store that might have been a bit more senior selling wine and how you
Yeah.
experienced that interaction. And then when you started doing it, what was your angle? What was your approach? How did you interact with customers and why did you ultimately, were successful at selling that product?
Here's an interesting insight that I haven't thought about. I spent very little time patterning myself or looking at anybody else selling. At that point, by doing, 50 baseball card shows at that point, at 14, 15, maybe more, I already thought I was a better salesman than my dad, than Bobby, than Dick, than Carl, than anybody in the store. These are real names, by the way. So I anybody that I remember. It's kind of funny. I think you go in this zone when I'm selling. I'm in the zone, right? I don't even remember. I don't even remember. Hang it. I didn't even know anybody else existed. Customer walked in. I targeted them like a shark, and my angle was anecdotally when nobody was selling, when I was packing out, reading the back of the wine label, uh, reading the sign that was on the display because we had signs. Maybe I would ask Dick, who was like kind of the senior wine guy, a question or two. Reading the wine, I educated myself I also paid attention to how other customers talked to each other, which I think is an interesting tactic that now, because you're right that I haven't done a lot of videos on sales. Uh, I'm exploring some parts of my brain that I haven't hit into. You know, a lot of time watching how people sell people when they're not the salesman. And I think that's attractive, right? If you
Yeah.
look at the tactics of when somebody's not the salesman, one thing I'm dazing into right now is the thought of like other customers were really good at selling customers on wine. Like I would be standing by somebody and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, wine." And I remember other customers being more attracted to hearing that person say it than me saying it because there was an authenticity to it, right? There was no vested interest. I remember even thinking like it would be smart to like create fake customers to do that. um, I uh, I think I'm a great salesman because I listen, watch. I'm behavioral. It's hunting. I look for patterns. I pay attention to what people do. I'm a conversion guy in an emotional way more so than an analytical way. And so, my style was listen to them, ask them questions like, "Hey, can I help you?" Here's a good example. "Hey, can I help you?" "Yeah, I'm looking for some wine for a party." I would never go, "Well, you got to look at this." I would keep asking questions. I think historically, I've always asked more questions. It's why I'm good on Twitter. I do a lot of back and forth, right?
Yeah.
I would say, "Well, what kind of party are you having?" "Oh, are you having a boss trying to impress him? Because maybe we should go in a direction of a name brand." "Oh, you're having just your buddies over for an NFL draft and they all really drink beer and they don't know the difference? Here's the best $8 wine that acts like a $15 wine." Did a lot of listening, and I'm hyper, and I speak fast, so I throw four different scenarios. I would throw four different scenarios at them in a 2 second period, and be like, "For a party, for a boss, for friends," and I was trying to see like where I would react to body language.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between asking a question so you get the permission to talk versus asking a question so you get to real understanding, right? Like really getting into the mind of the customer and the needs they have before even attempting to offer them a solution.
I always talk, so I've never asked questions in my life for permission to talk. I'm going to talk when it's inappropriate. I'll talk over you if I have to. I'm going to talk. So I always am asking questions to reverse engineer the insight and to provide the most value from that insight.
And I could stay on the topic of selling wine for a long time because I think it's a fascinating product if you think about.
Here's what's fascinating about it. People are intimidated by it, and it's all predicated on stories. It's all commodity, right? At some level, a Pinot Noir is a Pinot better Pinot Noirs than other Pinot Noirs. A Barolo, there's better Barolos than other Barolos, but there's very few people that actually can taste the difference. And
Yeah.
now you're in full storytelling mode, and now you're playing on emotion and the vineyard stories. It gave me as an artist, and that's how I think of myself as a salesman. It gave me a big wide canvas to draw. The only thing I had to navigate through was the ratings by the biggest uh, reviewers, Robert Parker, Wine Spectator. But outside of that context, it was free reign.
So let's talk about. I want to come back to the storytelling aspect of sales, but before we do that, I want to just briefly talk about. You ask questions, you understand the other person, and then you kind of find a way to story tell them into finding something that's a good match and that emotionally speaks to them. What do you do?
And let's
Yeah.
talk about sales. And is in the benefit of my business.
Okay.
I think the best salesperson provides both. I mean, the worst salesman's out for themselves, and
Yeah.
that's why we see a lot of bad salespeople.
Yep.
The second worst salesman is 100% in the camp of the customer and is doing something that's not benefiting their business.
Yeah.
To me, the best salesperson is the one that's providing value to both fronts. Like I took a lot of pride in, and it's long before you sell, it starts at product. I had to get great at tasting wine because I wanted to find the best deal on a $12 wine that I could buy for $8 versus a $12 wine I bought for $11, right? It was
Yep.
and I had to find something esoteric to make that kind of profit. So I had to know what it was. And then that them because then if I don't feel good about what I'm selling, I'm dead.
Yeah, because you're not authentic in your pitch, right? You're a super passionate guy, but what fuels that
Listen,
passion?
I could be authentic about selling. Like I'm authentically in love with the sport of selling. I just want to be able to sell to that person again. And if I don't believe in what I'm selling, I won't get that chance.
Absolutely.
Um,
So let's talk real quick about what happens when challenges arise in the interaction. Let's say, confidence and competence, especially in the early days, but also later on in life. You ask questions, you understand somebody, you offer them a solution, you make your pitch, and they have objections or they have
yeah,
fears.
yeah,
How did you react to that back in the day? But also, how do you think about that today when people come up with objections, things that challenges that stand in the way between
yeah.
you and actually closing the deal, even if it's a great deal for both sides? How do you think about that philosophically and also tactically?
I think about it very heavily, actually. I This is a great question. I I'm very weird on this answer, and I know a lot of people are going to watch this, so I want to be careful here. I disrespect the customer that what I sell, and so it's very I become combative and non-pressuring, meaning if you don't want to buy what I'm selling, I become borderline disappointed and condescending, meaning that I spend almost no time trying to convince somebody to buy something when they provide resistance after I've done my.
Was that always like that?
Yeah.
And how did
Yeah,
it work in the early days when you weren't, you're a pretty big brand by now. So today
that's
at,
right.
VaynerMedia, when
it
clients come,
it worked awesomely,
yeah,
meaning it didn't work, like meaning didn't buy the wine I sold. However, as the wines that I was pushing became the most popular wines in the world and people saw that I knew what I was talking about, um, I started getting historical credit. And that, my friend, is what I've been focused on, which is I am when somebody doesn't buy me, when they don't buy my personality as Gary Vee, when they don't buy VaynerMedia, when they don't buy the wine, because I always know I'm going to be right, because I always believe in what I'm selling, and because I have a good enough track record to be right about what I've been selling. And so, what as a vetting exercise to decide if I think that person is smart. I am so confident and have so much ego and bravado to what I'm selling that if somebody doesn't buy it, it puts me in a zone of disrespecting their intellect and ability to feel what's happening in the moment, and it changes the course of my perception of them. Now, that may not mean anything to that person, but it's reared its head multiple times in my career where that person on the other side has gone on to different places, has needed my help or services, and I have a taste of not getting the sale, because I actually like when I don't get the sale and I can have the empathy to understand why they didn't buy it. They didn't buy it not because they didn't buy what I was selling. They didn't buy it because they just couldn't. There was some tactical reason and I understood it. That's fine. When they could and they went with something else, that, that's thinking about it. And so it's an interesting kind of like, this is fun for me. I'm enjoying this interview. It's an interesting thing. Like, I am flabbergasted if I give my best at bat and they can buy, that they don't. It really makes me question the skills and makes me navigate doing business with them in the future, because we'll be doing business with lots of people in the future wearing different hats. I just spoke in Dallas this morning. I'm in Orlando now, and ran into somebody at a marketing conference that I did wine business with and I hadn't seen in 10 years. And some of his smart decision making, which and his family's winery betting on me when I was a kid and nobody knew, made me believe in his intuition. And now that he needs me more in this scenario, I'm going to pay forward to him because I believe in his gut feel and his intellect and his betting forward. And that's kind of cool to me.
But that, so that kind of competitiveness that you described to a certain degree, right? You put your heart and soul into something. You're sure that what you're selling is benefiting both parties and it's going to be a big win.
Yep.
And then saying, hey, I've done everything I could, and this is going to actually make your life, your business better. And if you don't take that, that kind of totally takes me by surprise and makes me wonder like who I'm dealing with. That, you could see that I could see people, especially people that are outside of the sales realm, seeing this as a typical sales guy,
Yep.
arrogance
Yep.
kind of a
I get it.
approach. But I think
It sounds terrible.
it does.
Like
But,
it
but,
sounds atrocious.
but,
Like I hate that I'm so authentic in my interviews and always want to tell the truth, because that was so uncomfortable to give you an answer of, like that was one of the douchiest things I've ever said publicly. Um, but it's truth.
but that's why it's actually valuable, because you don't just give, you could give me an easy answer to make yourself look good and make us kind of roll with the interview nicely, how awesome salespeople are and the hustle. But you actually said something, as you said, that's uncomfortable but true, but that it lets us explore kind of, go a little bit deeper under things. I think that,
Well, I think, look, this interview in itself started with my thesis, which is I'm impressed that you have sniffed out that probably the thing that I most am has been least dug into by the entire marketing ecosystem. That already makes me want to dig deep. You might have even noticed, you've watched a lot of my interviews. I usually watch forward. I even did let me look into the sky and like really think here, because I think you deserve it because you set up the context properly.
awesome. So let's just comment or spend just a little bit more time on that before we move forward. There's so many things I want to talk about, but I don't want to just leave this off and walk forward, because I know that certain people, specifically the people that don't know your work and haven't followed you for many, many years, are missing the context of what's really valuable here. Because I think that competitiveness that you're describing is something that maybe many hustlers or salespeople really have, but if you don't have the foundation of actually doing the work and the research and knowing that what you're proposing is in the best interest of all parties involved, and you work your ass off to create win-wins, if you don't have that as the foundation, all that's left is selfishness. And then if you run into people 5 or 10 years later, they're actually happy they never bought from you, and you have to keep on finding new people, right? You're running out of people eventually. So in that regard, the approach that you have is like, I'm glad when somebody says no, because I know sooner or later, time will tell that what I tried to sell was actually a great thing to do. So in the future, we'll cross paths and it's going to create new opportunities.
Great opportunities, because when you're right, they buy from you more emphatically time number two. I'm very proud that VaynerMedia is now at an age where people that we've done business with have gone on to other companies, and that more and more of our people that we did business with one other time before. That's how you scale,
Yeah.
right? We're
Yeah.
about to land a multi-million-dollar deal from a very big company, completely predicated on the work we did 2 years ago. And a client that didn't believe in a lot of stuff we were saying and wanted to go more traditional, but got results, understood, was so, yeah, man. I mean, like, to build a real wine business, I needed everybody to buy wine for me. You buy wine 25, 50 times a year. Like, you want them to come back. If you don't do that, you start losing. And so I've only been in the mindset of return customer, lifetime value. And I've always sold something I believe in. And I've always been a foremost expert in the things that I've sold. I've not been average. I've not been average in wine or social media. I'm not an average guy in those things. And so, and once you hit a pedestal, I'm scared to come down from it. I'm incentivized to stay at the top. I'm I don't want to fall off. I don't want to be a one-hit wonder. I'm completely driven by fear, by uh, gratitude, by empathy that I've been gifted gifts that I have to execute against, um, by my legacy, by a lot of pure things. Look, I really truly believe that a great saleswoman or man is as good as it gets in human behavior. And it blows me away to know that salespeople is a negative condensation in the world, and that's fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me that the purest 5, 2, 3, 1% of salespeople are the singular best people I know, and that the other 97% teeter towards the worst people I know. It's why it's a very interesting game.
Yeah. I think Well, let's talk about this for a little bit, kind of sales and ethics, right? Authenticity is one part, but like knowing why you're doing what you're doing, why you're in sales, why you're in the business of influencing people, basically, right? You're taking and you're leaving the realm of like a passive group of people that's just focused on what they're doing to a more proactive and influential group of people that go out and try to change people's mind and make people do things and help people make decisions. And I think that might play a big role in kind of people being uncomfortable with salespeople, because salespeople are known to want to influence, other people. And some people are afraid of that. And because, many areas incentivize salespeople in a bad way and got bad behavior out of that,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
If you give the wrong incentives, you get the wrong behavior.
Well, listen, being a great salesperson gets into manipulation, and manipulation gets into, it's like, are you going to do something, are you going to do something are you going to do something great with your talent, or are you going to do something evil, right? Like,
Right.
look, some of the most evil men and women of all time were inches away from being some of the greatest, right? Because they had the power. They
Yeah.
just chose to do the wrong thing with it. Their DNA was wrong. You know, I am extremely self how close I am to the dark side. I'm very self-aware of it. I'm so thankful that whatever moral compass was in me, and then the way my parents parented me, shoot, I was close, man. I'm close. I can taste it. It's kind of like, Luke Skywalker. You can just taste it. It's very close.
Have
If you're
you
great, if you're great at it, you're very close.
Have you ever crossed that line, or has it ever been a time, and not when you were a little kid and you didn't know
I've
what you were
I've
doing?
I've crossed the line in my youth in a lightweight way where I bullshitted and exaggerated further than what I think is acceptable by all regular standards, right? I there's embellishing and hyperbole, and then there's lying. I think that it took me a little while to get the handlebars right. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, I was still finding my way. I would still like overemphasize. And even to this day, like, what saved me is being so public, and I'm scared. But even if you look at my keynotes, you know, I run the gamut of like, like for wine, once and for all, like it's like 3.9, 3.8, right? When I took over, but I'll say three, sometimes I say four, you know, like I don't always context how I grew the business. What year did sometimes I say 45, sometimes I say 60, because in my mind, I'm talking about different periods. And like one's one period when I really ran it, then it was the wine library stuff. So, you know, I'm not that worries about black and white, but I'm scared to be called out. And so I stay in my zone these days. Um, I stay in my zone.
Awesome. So let's step back from kind of sales philosophy and ethics and shift over to a bit more tactical stuff. So we started off with like you selling, lemonade and the baseball cards or football cards, and then wine. Like let's zoom let's jump to today in VaynerMedia. I know that that's kind of your focus on the execution part, and you're growing that business dramatically, and you're selling to large organizations, not the individual consumer walking to a wine store wanting to buy
I
wine.
went right from B to C.
Exactly. So what has changed? I know that some things are the same, right? You trying to create win-wins, you being authentic, but what has changed? What's different when you're trying to land like a massive Fortune 500 company and you give them your pitch? How do you think about selling to these organizations? What tactics or tool and tips do you have? And how do you
Nothing,
approach that sale?
nothing has changed other than me having to learn what they care about.
And what do they
Nothing.
care about?
Lots of different things to get press so that they could get a raise or get taken away from that company and go to another company. To act because they're prideful in it and they think that's their best way to succeed. To not work hard because they just had two kids and they want to have better work-life balance, and so you've got to deliver. I am objective of the other person, agnostic.
Okay.
I could care less. I just want to figure it out. And then as soon as I know it, I will sell them that, as long as I feel good about what we're doing. Meaning, we'll do a lot of grunt work for you because you don't want to do it because you're busy. will get you in the press and get your brand a ton of press, will pump you up internally to your bosses, as long as I'm doing the good work that your brand actually needs. I don't mind what the spark and the sizzle is, but if the steak is flawed, I'm out.
So you're touching on something that's really important and powerful when it comes to selling to organizations. A lot of entrepreneurs come to me, and when they describe how they're trying to sell to an organization, they always do it as if an organization is not a collection of individuals. And
Right.
they always think, well, it's in the best interest of company XYZ to do this, but the people that are the decision makers, the stakeholders, they might have aligned interests, but sometimes they don't,
No,
right?
no,
And
no.
you were talking about things
They
like,
they they mostly don't.
don't, right? Yeah. You talked about like people's selfish interests, like being promoted, getting a new job, working very little. Like,
Every single person has to be selfish to some degree. It's human behavior. None of us are flawed.
yeah.
None of us. Uh, like this is normal. Now, some could go to an extreme, and that's look. It's all calibration. If you go too extreme that you care just about yourself, you're starting to get into a place. But like I default into those flaws. I think about them, and the reason I can sleep at night is I use them not as the only thing we do, as the permission to do the best. Because the truth is, what I sell and have always sold in my entire life is the future. And when you're selling the future, it's hard to sell in the present. And so you have to sell on actually what people care about in the present to basically trick them to get into the future.
That's awesome. So, okay, I can see how that applies to, well, actually, I can see how that applies to everything that I know you selling, from
I
wine
I
to
sell
books
to,
to,
to, to my employees on my vision,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And and I'm fine with using the word trick because it makes me laugh because it's funny to me, but it's not trick. It's to mind into seeing possibilities that others don't see at that moment. But I never sell something that's not practical. I'm not selling augmented reality right now. I'm not selling, Snapchat to 60-year-old audiences right now. We may. I always feel like I'm very practical. I'm a Russian immigrant, Russian immigrant. I'm a, it has to make sense. But I don't mind investing in 12 to 18 months out. And so, yeah, I'm selling individually. To You're showing me a $48 billion company I'm working with. I see Karen decisions to make, and I need to figure Karen out because she's going to make the decision.
Yeah, I love that, and that's an insight a lot of people are missing because they're so.
Because a couple things. One, they're not good salespeople. Two, they're romantic. The reason people are bad at sales is they're romantic. They think that their solution is so great for Pepsi that of course it has to happen. That is a naivete that has put a lot of businesses directly into the ground.
And it sounds very much like we're talking even more specifically about tech entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah, but look, but so like shopping cart in a retailers that had innovations like no, yes, under the we come from that world, we're here on Sky, but it happens in every world. There's the two people that lose are the romantics and the ones that think they can sleaze their way through. The two people that lose are the ones that are romantic and not practical and look at it and then the ones that think they've got so much charisma and charm and so much bullshit that nobody will call their bluff and it's worked for them. And what they don't realize is they're climbing up the same hill over and over. And you're right, you can do it. And you can have a lot of one night stands, but to have a meaningful marriage, you've lost.
So let's talk about people trying to sell to you. You're an investor, you're an angel
Yep.
investor.
Yep.
You just raised a fund, so now there's
Yep.
even more capital to allocate
Yep.
and support entrepreneurs.
Yep.
So
Yep.
when you look at entrepreneurs, like first of all, is being a hustler, is that really is that something you appreciate, or is that a kind of a requirement for you to invest? If you have, or is it like
Both.
every company is different?
I both. It's a requirement, and I appreciate it.
Okay, but would you invest in kind of a very technical company if you find the people brilliant but maybe not having the core hustler DNA?
No,
Why?
uh, because I because I'm uncomfortable in that environment because I do not believe that that puts me in the best position to succeed. I believe that business is war, and I'm looking for wartime generals. right?
Yeah.
And she or he better really know what to do when their tech gets copied. Commodity. Now what?
So how do you know if somebody is a hustler? What's kind
I
of your,
guess.
and what are the signals that help you in that guesswork?
Well,
Like, what are you looking for?
luckily for me, this is so not replicatable. Luckily for me, I feel that I have EQ, and as you know, by us rescheduling this multiple times, by the email I sent a couple hours ago, I was looking to be off this interview 5 minutes ago. 100% needed to be off 5 minutes ago. Got something going on. But because I feel like you're an awesome dude and I'm reacting to the questions and the vibe and the way you handled the whole process, here I am, right? It's just like this interview. I just go on the way I feel. And it's been great in picking my wife, and it's been great in picking a lot of investments, and it's been wrong in picking investments uh, because I become impatient at times because it's hard to find them. Uh, so my discipline is probably a factor because sometimes you're wrong, and because sometimes the hustler is on, it's a very thin line, right? I've got
Yeah.
one investment I can think of right now where it could have been $1 billion play and it became a crash and burn within a year. And it had to do with that magic. And I'd probably bet on that person again, believe it or not,
Hmm.
because it's so close. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
After the second time, I'd probably give up, but I would play again. And so, the truth is it's very personal. You know, I don't think I'm great at it. I think I'm normal at it. Um, that's what I think.
Awesome. Hey, I want to be respectful of your time.
Let's keep going. Keep going.
S- s-
I'll tell you when to stop.
okay, awesome. So let's talk about, I know a lot of times you've talked about kind of hustle being in your DNA,
Yeah.
right? Would you say that hustling or sales in general is like uncoachable? Do you think you can learn to sell or learn to be more of a hustler, or do you think you just have it or you
I
don't?
think I can learn to become a dramatically better version of a basketball player than I am right now. I do not think that I can learn how to be in the NBA.
Okay.
So
Fair
so
enough.
I think everybody has upside, right? I think you can teach a lot of things. But it does have a limit.
And when you are hiring people for your businesses, is there, or even when you make investments, is there some kind of framework that you think about when you see somebody that has kind of the potential to be an amazing hustler or salesperson that you're coaching them in, or is it all just kind of gut feel, all intuition? You just from situation to situation jump in and tell them, give them feedback, give them an outsider perspective, or is there
If
things that you have to
Yeah,
do?
raw talent, or like if you see things in people, I do bring them into ninja forces to work on something so I can see, like if I see something in an email, in a presentation, in the way they interact with somebody in the hall, I will take note, and then I will bring them into an inner circle of something so I can dig a little deeper. And if that goes well, I'll dig a little deeper. And so, yeah, there's been ways of that for sure. I mean, I think that's what being a scalable operator to the level that I am, I think that's one of my best skills. I actually build businesses. It's not just me being the social media guru or me being the wine guy and I have a wine show. Like I have organizations that, hefty 8-figure organizations that I've built in 36 to 48 months, both times. That takes talent. And that talent is actually HR people talent. It's not other talent. I have a knack. And listen, boy, do I miss a bunch of times too. But when you're hitting one out of every two times, or, that's an incredible percentage, you know?
Yep.
Um, when you're finding talent that sticks with you and that you groom, poof.
Yeah, magic happen, and you're able to actually grow things, right? You can't grow tons of businesses on your own, especially on your schedule, all the interviews, the
I
books, the things
I
that you do.
I met Brandon Warnicki the first day of ninth grade. He was a nerd in high school. I was an upper popular kid. I kept that relationship at 15, 16, 17 when like girls told me not even to be friends with him because it was bad for my rep type of stuff. Not fully Brandon, don't worry, but kind of. And he runs Wine Library, and I sniffed out his talent at 14, and so yeah, I believe in it.
Awesome. So when people try to pitch you on their ideas,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's hundreds, thousands that reach out to you with cold emails, or at events. I'm sure there's people that want to shake your hand and then try to give you an elevator pitch. Give these people some feedback, some like do's and don'ts, or like, since don't waste your time on doing X, or here's a pitch, or here's an email that was really effective and really, came through all the noise.
If someone is like trying to game me, which would make sense as I would do if I wanted to get to somebody, um, you're not going to trick me on my move. Now with jab, 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 right hook, everybody's like sending me emails like trying to jab me. And I'm like, I literally like read, I'm like, okay, I'll see you in a couple, and sure enough, another one. And then I'm like, okay. And oh, there it is, the pitch. Authentically jab me. Like actually try to bring me value, right? Like
Yeah.
just saying hello for the sake of, have you ever seen somebody fake smile?
Yeah. All the time.
I just can't deal with that. And so say, I don't mind if you come in right for the kill on the right hook, if I feel like you authentically have some magic and you feel it, and I believe you that you believe you have it. I'm okay if you jab me, if you authentically jab me. You're like literally thinking like, I don't have anything for him, but he's a guy, and I'm just going to keep providing value. And maybe 6 years from now, I just need to believe the authenticity. And there's no real tactic. It's just my radar, one that I think is in tune. So I don't think I get tricked easily. I have family members that do, and I watch it, and I know. And so that's it.
What about follow-up? Like, what is your take on people that are, where does persistent start and end, and where's it desperate? When somebody
I
follows
I
up,
I over-index on liking people stalking. I give the benefit of the doubt. Where most people think things get annoying, I see perseverance. I do. Eventually, I've gotten to annoyed states when I've clearly articulated I'm not interested. But when I haven't responded or I was wishy-washy because I was being polite, I don't mind perseverance.
can you respect that?
I do. That's because I know that I haven't given a clear no.
Yeah.
I know that I was like, yo, man, I'm head down for 3 months, because sometimes yes or no, like I am head down, but I don't want to say no because it feels so little like it's got something, right? Or where I don't answer because I just missed it on email. I don't answer every email anymore. I'm trying, but like it's just overwhelming. Like, but if I say, hey, man, I'm really not interested, like I can't do it, I apologize, and then there's persistence, then I don't mind one more because I like the fight. But two more would start getting me into a weirder place.
I get it. What are your favorite entrepreneurs, especially when it comes to the hustle? Are there any people out there that you're like, these are like the best hustlers in the game today, right? You're a sports guy.
Yeah.
Who are like the ultimate hustlers in the world right now from your perspective? People that are on your radar that inspire you, especially from
I think Mark Zuckerberg is crazy underrated. Underrated. I think he's a
underrated.
massive hustler. I love his tenacity of paying attention to everything going on to make sure that Facebook's throne doesn't get touched, and he has to either or copy it. I'm obsessed with his tenacity, hustle skills. I think they're grossly, grossly, grossly underestimated. I think people think of him more as a as a uh, as a Bill Gates, as a nerd, as a dev. I don't see that at all. I think Travis Kalkin at Uber is an outrageous hustler. I'm a huge fan. He's got straight fire. Um, I believe in him quite a bit, and I've known him for a long time. He's a friend. I'm an investor in Uber, though I silly passed in the beginning. Mistake on my part, and I should have not made a mistake just on Travis, though I didn't think he was going to be that involved, which is why. Um, uh, I think I think I'm a huge fan of Katya and Haley, the Birchbox co-founders. They are hardcore. They just were relentless when everybody was still out there pounding. They had a hustle both to break through in the cosmetics world, to break through in a new business model, which was sampling of the month club, to break through in the VC world. I find Katya and Haley have that fire, quiet fire, graceful fire. You know, they definitely have it. That's some.
Awesome. Especially, I mean, Travis, so the Birchbox founders and Travis, I think, it's easy to see for everybody why you put them as kind of core hustle geniuses out there. Mark Zuckerberg is an awesome one because it's kind of left field. People, as you said, people don't see him that way.
People
People,
are really sleeping on
yeah.
him. He's an assassin that way. And he's got
Yep.
to listen to the reason he's so successful. He's got a lot of good things going for him. A lot of times, guys like me, for example, at times, you're like, "Hey, go there," and I'll just literally run through the literally will run through the glass where the door was right there, and I could have just opened it. He's really strong at both of those things.
Yep.
Um, I'm proud that I opened the door 7 out of 10 times, but I'll run right through the goddamn glass 3 out of 10 times. You know, it's just the way it is.
So with the eyes through the door rather than with the head to the wall.
Absolutely.
So two last questions, and I'll let you go. I want to talk about. I want you to remember, if you can, kind of two scenarios and share them with us. One of your biggest sales victories, like a huge deal that you got either for VaynerMedia or for your wine library, or
I
even,
got it. I got it.
and
Ready?
then the biggest failure, one of the most devastating pitches that you lost, or even moments where you try to convince
Yeah,
somebody. It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
have to be
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I couldn't convince Ben Silberman over email and the email to let me invest in Pinterest a couple years ago, and that's a big loss for me financially, and I'm disappointed that I didn't run through the glass. I should have got on a plane and I would have got it. I just didn't want it bad enough. And uh, as far as a win, the first two clients of VaynerMedia were the Jets and the Nets. Both Brett Yormark, the CEO of the Nets, and Matt Higgins, the president of the Jets, who's now my partner in Vayner RSC, both came to me to sell me luck at the Nets and the Jets stadiums for Wine Library. They didn't know VaynerMedia was coming because it wasn't started yet. AJ was just about to graduate. They walked in with a sales pitch deck to sell Wine Library skyboxes at their stadiums, and they left within the hour, both big time sales as VaynerMedia clients. I literally switched and sold them in the meeting. And to this day, both of them view those as like massively fond memories of like, holy crap, like you really got it. Like Brett Yormark especially wrote me incredibly. I mean, he's a true hustling salesman, and he was flabbergasted that I was able to flip the switch on him and get him to be a client.
That's awesome. Hey, thank you so much for sharing
My
those two
pleasure.
stories. Hey, Gary, thanks so much for taking the time. You're awesome. Keep hustling.
I will.
Keep inspiring all of us, and looking forward to meet you and see you soon.
Can't wait. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye.